You're having chocolate milk? توقع. Okay, which brand? Nada? Nada or Al Marahi? Marahi, okay. Good. Isa, how come you notice everything? How many eyes do you have? You only have two. Oh, Aya is very happy today. MashaAllah. Okay, so I can joke with you today, Aya, yeah? But don't get upset if I pick on you a lot. Don't cry at the end of the class and then text me. So you made me upset. I don't like it. Okay. Let's start. Mena, stop playing with your phone. Stop playing with your phone. All right. My lovely beloved students, today is going to be very similar to our last session that I posted on YouTube when I wrote a Band 9 report, an academic task 1. But today we're going to write a general training task 1 letter. Before I start, I should remind you of the marking criteria. We have 4 different marking criteria when you write that you have to pay attention to. Task achievement, coherence and cohesion, lexical resource, grammatical range and accuracy. And look at this table. In this table, you see all the points that you have to address to get a high score in all the different 4 marking criteria. Can you see the table? Good. Today, we're going to write a letter. But today, I'm not going to be writing the letter myself. I'm going to call my younger self again. Isa, we do not want you younger self. We need you, the old guy. I'm still young, but younger means younger than me now, but I'm still young. Yeah. So my younger self is going to show you how a band 9 letter is written, word by word. Let me share the screen. I highly recommend you watch this video or attend this class, even if you're not doing the general training version of the IELTS, because it's still going to help you. Okay? Even if you're doing the academic version. Look at the photo, yeah? Now you're not going to understand why this photo is there, but slowly, you're going to understand and you're going to link it to the answer. Let me read it. You should spend about 20 minutes on this task. We know this. You have read an advertisement for a part-time job welcoming visitors to your town. Okay, welcome Asma and Umar. Welcome. Good. Write to the recruiters in your letter. Explain why you want the job. Describe why you would be a good person for the role. Describe any relevant experience you may have. Write at least 150 words. We know this. You do not need to write any addresses. We know this. Begin your letter as follows. Dear sir or madam. First question. I'm going to ask you a lot of questions because I know you sleep during the classes. We have 3 different types of letters. Formal, informal, semi-formal. What type of letter is this? Yalla, in the comments. Wake up. Toqa saying formal. Formal. Type. Don't be lazy. Learn to interact. Isa, I just want to watch like a YouTube video. You're not even liking the YouTube video that I upload. At least interact here. Formal letter. Okay. Good. It's a formal letter. Why is it a formal letter? We have 2 reasons to know why this is a formal letter. Number 1, because we're applying for a job. correct? And when you apply for the job, you're writing to recruiters. You have to ask yourself, do you know the recruiters? The answer is no. If you're writing a letter to someone you don't know, it's a formal letter. Full stop. This is reason number one. Reason number two, if you look at the question, what does it say here? Dear sir or madam. When you see dear sir or madam, blindly, you would know that this is a formal letter. Sir or madam means that you do not know who you're writing to. So it's a hint for you to know that this is a formal letter. Cool? Cool. Look at the photo. This person is you. Okay. Now, let's start writing our letter. Are you ready? Tocha, you finished the milk? Not yet? Okay. All right. Now, my younger self is going to talk. Yeah? And I want you to pay attention to my younger self. All right. So now we're going to be doing the first letter exercise. So we're going to learn how to write it word by word. So all the pieces of information that we learned in the previous videos are going to make sense in the following videos, including this video, obviously. So I want you to focus, pay attention, get your coffee ready, or the tea with milk, carnation milk, and sit at your desk. If you have kids, kick them out of the room so you can concentrate 100%. Okay, let's start. Let's read the question. You have read an advertisement for a part-time job welcoming visitors to your town. Write to the recruiters in your letter. Number one, explain why you want the job. Describe why you would be a good person for the role. Number three, describe any relevant experience you may have. I forgot to tell you that this is part of the course that I have on the website. When I'm talking, I might be referring back to other videos, and these videos are part of the course. So do not get confused, okay? Because this is part of another course. A few comments. This is called advertisement in British English. Americans say advertisement. So both of them are correct. Recruiters, if you don't know, technically the employees in a certain company who work in the HR department. So they employ new people, okay? Or recruiters could also be a separate company that recruits people for other companies. They are like a third party, okay? So they are the connection between the potential employee and the company, okay? But anyway, it doesn't make a big difference. So when you read the question, we have three stages. Stage number one is the planning stage. What is stage number two and stage number three? Write in the comments. 3 stages. Planning, something, and then something. Quickly. No. No one is answering. Toqa correct. Ghufran wrong. I'm not talking about the paragraphs. Plus, in the letter, you do not write an overview. You write an overview in the report. Task 1, academic. We have planning. We have writing. We have proofreading. You have to spend only 75% of your time doing the actual writing. 25% of your time should be divided between planning and proofreading. Yes, no. Generating ideas is part of planning. Stage number 2 is the writing stage. Stage number 3 is the proofreading stage. Now we're going to start the planning stage. When you want to start planning, I told you before, you have to decide 3 things. I'm not going to pause every single minute, but let me, because I want you to wake up. 3 things, yeah? We have to decide 3 things when we plan the letter. I'm talking about the letter now. 3 things. So pay attention to these 3 things. Number 1, the tone of the letter. Number 2,
the purpose of the letter. Number 3, the topic of the letter. In this case, the tone of the letter is formal. Why formal? You ask yourself, who are you writing to? The recruiters. Do you know them? You don't know them. So it's formal. So this is number 1. So the tone is formal. The purpose, I think it's obvious. You're applying for a job. So it's a job application letter.
The purpose could be job application, could be apology, could be inviting someone, could be expressing disappointment, could be expressing frustration, could be complaining. All of these ones are letter purposes. The language that you use is going to be affected by the purpose of the letter, and also the tone of the letter, and also the topic of the letter. That's why these 3 things are important. Tone, which means formality, purpose, the topic.
Number 3, what is the topic? Something related to work and jobs. So the reason I told you to decide on these 3 things is because these 3 things are going to affect the way you write, the words you're going to be choosing. So they make a big difference, okay? Another step that you have to take into consideration when you're reading the letter question is to highlight the keywords. Why? Because I've already told you before, when we spoke about task response, you have to address all the keywords in the question.
When I say address the keywords, this means you have to mention them in your answer. You have to address the keywords, means you have to mention them in your answer. Yeah? You have to say something about them. You have to say something about the part-time job. You have to say something about the visitors. You have to say something about the job ad that you read. You have to mention something about your experience. This is what I mean by addressing them.
So when you're reading the question, you have to highlight the most important words, and these important words should be addressed in your writing. Let me show you what I mean. Let me highlight these important words. For example, advertisement. This is a key word. What does that mean? You have to mention it in your letter. Part-time job. You have to mention that this job is part-time. Don't just mention a job, okay? Be specific. Welcoming visitors. Here, in many IELTS questions, especially when it comes to job application letters, they don't tell you exactly what the title of the job is. They want you to use your vocabulary so you can show the examiner that you know what the title of the job is. So here, they're not really telling you the title of the job, but we know that when you're welcoming visitors to a certain area, this is technically a tour guide. So you can use the phrase tour guide. They're not telling you the title of the job in a very obvious way. And here, in your town, write a letter to the recruiters. We might mention this as well. Explain why you want the job. So we have to mention in the first bullet point, why do we need this job? Number 2, describe why you would be a good person for this role. Now here I want you to be careful.
I want you to pay attention here. Focus. This is important.
A lot of students, when they want to talk about the first bullet point, they say, all right, I need the job because of the skills I have, for example, and the experience I have. Well, the skills and the experience you have might be talked about in the second bullet point. And if you speak about them in the first bullet point, you are left with nothing to talk about in the second bullet point. So that's why it's very important to read all the 3 bullet points so you don't mix them up when you're writing. Let's keep reading. Describe any relevant experience you may have.
Did you understand this? No. When you say, why do you want the job? Most likely you want the job because you have experience that matches the job requirements, correct? But here, if you mention the experience that you have, in the first body paragraph, which should represent the first bullet point, what are you going to talk about in the third bullet point, for example? You know what I mean? So you should not repeat the ideas in the body paragraphs. And obviously, let me tell you this thing. Each bullet point has to have its own separate body paragraph. So if you mention the experience in the first body paragraph as a reason why you want this job, what are you going to be mentioning in the third body paragraph? So you have to go through all the bullet points first and then try to come up with ideas that do not repeat themselves. Ideas that are not overlapping, because each body paragraph should have separate ideas. Clear? Clear. Whatever. These are not clear, but okay. Let me just shake my head.
So this one is very tricky, to be honest, because you have to plan properly. If you want to talk about experience, you only talk about the years of experience in the last bullet point. Do not talk about it in the first bullet point. Do not talk about it in the second bullet point, which is very tricky, because when you want to apply for a job, when they tell you why you are a good person for the role, the first thing that comes to your mind is because of the experience I have. Yeah? But no, here you have to think about something else. So now that we've read the entire question and we've highlighted all the important words, let's make up a story and let's have at least 2 ideas for each one of the bullet points.
So when you plan your letter, first of all, you have to read the question, obviously. You have to decide the tone, the purpose, the topic, and then you have to come up with ideas. 2 ideas for each bullet point. Okay? Keep this in your mind. Why 2 ideas? Because 1 idea is not going to be enough. You have to write at least 150 words. If you only want to write 1 idea for each bullet point, you're not going to exceed 100 words.
And let's have at least 2 ideas for each one of the bullet points, because this is part of the planning stage when you're writing a letter. All right. Explain why you want the job. We agreed that we're not going to be talking about the experience. And this one, to be honest, the first bullet point and the second bullet point are kind of very similar to each other. So you have to be careful. All right, let's think about it. Explain why you want this job. You can say, I have passion for tourism. Yeah, here you go. This is a good one. You can also say that you've studied tourism at university, which is also a good point. Here you go. We have 2 ideas. All right, let's move and speak about the second bullet point.
Have you noticed that the 2 ideas that I have for the first bullet point are not related to the second bullet point, and they're also not related to the third bullet point? Having passion has nothing to do with why you being a good. It has something to do, but you can come up with something else for the second bullet point, yeah? And it has nothing to do with experience, yeah? Having a degree in tourism, I think, it has nothing to do with the experience. It could have something to do with the second bullet point, but we're gonna come up with another reason why we're good for the role. Yeah? The most important thing is to not repeat your ideas.
All right, let's move and speak about the second bullet point. Why you would be a good person for this role. Here, we're still not going to be talking about the experience. You're going to leave the experience till the last bullet point. So let's talk about the skills we have. If you notice, in the first bullet point, we did not talk about experience. We did not even talk about skills. Let's talk about skills in the second bullet point. So why we are a good fit for this job? Number one, because we have the skills. What sort of skills do we have? We have communication skills, because when you are a tour guide, you should be able to talk to people properly. So communication skills, or people skills, as they call them. And you can also say that you can speak a number of languages fluently. Here you go. We have 2 ideas for the second bullet point. All right, lovely. The third bullet point, describe any relevant experience you may have. We can say that we have 1 year or 2 years of experience. Doesn't matter, a number of years of experience in that field. Another idea, like you can say, for example, during university days, you used to work as a tour guide, well, not really a tour guide, because if you want to lie, but you want to lie slightly. You don't want to tell them, all right, I was welcoming visitors in my town. You know what I mean? Like, all right, lie, but make it a little bit believable, for God's sake. So any relevant experience you may have, you can say, when you were at university, for example, you were welcoming international students to your university. Because when you go to Western countries, a lot of international students go and visit these universities on exchange programs. So, for example, a lot of Mexican students used to come to my university, and in return, a lot of Australian students get sent to Mexico on an exchange program. So, when these Mexican students come to Australia, some students have to look after them to tell them, all right, do you need a SIM card? Here's a SIM card. Do you want to know where the bus station is? Here you go. You know what I mean? So you're kind of having the same sort of experience. It's not exactly the same, but it's something relevant. Okay. All right. So for the last bullet point, we only have one idea because I think it's enough. Here we have two ideas, the passion and the university degree in tourism. Here we have two ideas. We have public speaking and communication skills. We can speak a number of languages fluently. Here for the third bullet point, we have only one idea, which is basically that we worked with international students during university days. Lovely. Now we can start. So the planning stage is finished. Obviously, when you're in the exam, you have to write whatever I'm saying. I don't want to write it here, but in the exam, you have to write it with your pencil on the question booklet. All right. Now, let's start writing our letter.
So the planning stage is done. But who knows how many paragraphs we're going to write? When we spoke about essays, I told you have to write 4 paragraphs. An introduction, body paragraph number 1, body paragraph number 2, a conclusion. When we spoke about the academic task 1 report, I also told you 4 paragraphs. An introduction, an overview, body paragraph number 1, body paragraph number 2. What about letters? How many paragraphs should we write? Everyone is saying 3. Let me tell you something. When you write letters, each bullet point has to have its own body paragraph. This means we have 3 body paragraphs. This is number 1, 3 body paragraphs. Instead of the introduction, obviously when you're writing a letter, there's no introduction. There's something that we call a purpose sentence. And instead of a conclusion, there is something that we call an ending sentence. Let me show you a slide from the presentation that I normally use in my courses, and I want you to take a screenshot of, so when I explain, you can relate. Okay? This is the letter structure. Pay attention here. Yeah? The purpose sentence, look at the, ignore the first one for now. Yeah? The purpose sentence, bullet point number 1 has its own body paragraph. Bullet point number 2 has its own body paragraph. Bullet point number 3 has its own body paragraph. And then there is the ending sentence. So we have, look at the cursor, 1, 2, 3, 4. And here we have the purpose sentence could be merged with the following paragraph. And I will tell you when. And then there's the greeting sentence. This is the 5th paragraph, but this one is optional, only in informal and sometimes in semi-formal letters. What does that mean, Isa? First of all, take a photo of this or a screenshot because I want you to use it when I'm writing the letter so you can relate. All right. And by the way, the salutation is when you write dear sir or madam, or dear Mr. Smith, or dear Johnny. This is the salutation. Signing off is when you say best regards, yours faithfully, or yours sincerely. Yeah. The greeting sentence. What is a greeting sentence? A greeting sentence, when you write to your friend, for example, you know this person, right? You're not going to start the letter directly by telling them, oh, I'm writing this letter to let you know that blah, blah, blah. No. You should mention something like, I hope you're doing well. I hope this email finds you well. This is what we call a greeting sentence. Okay? Or when you are responding to an email or to a letter, you should say, thank you for sending this email, for example. Yeah? This is what we call a greeting sentence. And obviously, the greeting sentence is going to be different if you're replying to someone or if you're sending a letter to someone for the first time. Okay? So this is the greeting sentence. And you only use a greeting sentence if you're writing to someone that you know. In other words, in informal letters and in semi-formal letters, because you're writing to someone you know. The purpose sentence can sometimes be merged with the first body paragraph. When can we merge this? Sometimes when they give you the bullet points, one of the bullet points or the first bullet point, sometimes in IELTS, they would mention like this, like write a letter, and then the first bullet point, apologize for not attending the party, for example. Here, the first bullet point is the purpose of the letter. When you apologize, this is technically the purpose why you're writing the letter. So if the purpose of the letter is the same as the first bullet point, you merge them together. Or technically, they become one body paragraph. You're not going to write a purpose, which is apologizing for not being able to attend, and then repeating the same thing. It doesn't make sense. Is this clear? Clear. Okay? Back to our videos.
In the exam, obviously, when you have the question booklet, it's going to tell you to start with dear sir or madam. Most of the time. In this case, because it's a formal letter, they're definitely going to tell you to start with dear sir or madam. So let's type it in. Just a reminder, sir starts with a capital S, madam starts with a capital M. All right.
Because we are writing a formal letter, I want to also tell you what are the different cases, yeah? If you're writing an informal letter, you wouldn't write dear sir or madam. Keep this in your mind. When you're writing an informal letter, you address your friend by their first name. So if his name is Michael Smith, you only say, Dear Michael. You do not mention their family name. Okay, what if it's a semi-formal letter? Let's say your boss in the company, his name is Michael Smith. How would you address your boss? Would you call him Michael? You might get the sack if you call him Michael. Or would you call him Mr. Michael? Or would you call him Mr. Smith? Or would you call him Mr. Michael Smith? Mr. Michael, Mr. Michael, Shawn Michaels, Michael Jackson. You guys being funny? Dear Smith? No. You call him or you address this person by the family name. The Mr. Smith. Mr. and then the family name. And do you add a full stop after MR or no full stop? Because these things make difference. Now you don't care about them because you want to get a 5 like Sarah. But if you want to get a good score, even the full stop might decide your future. One of them is American, by the way. One of them is British. Yeah? All right, pay attention.
Now, you should write your purpose sentence. I told you before, when you're writing a formal letter, your purpose should be crystal clear. If you remember, I showed you the photo of the American eagle. You remember? Catching the fish from the river. I told you you have to have a purpose sentence and an ending sentence to remind the reader that your purpose is as clear as crystal. Okay? So, let's write a very basic, straight to the point purpose sentence. I am writing to apply for the position of blah, blah, blah.
Why aren't we writing a greeting sentence here? Why can't we say, I hope you are doing well, or I hope that this email finds you well? One reason, we don't know them. We don't know them. We don't know them. If you don't know them, this means it's a formal letter. So it's the same answer. Yeah? But if you're writing a letter to your boss, yeah, I hope you're doing well. You got it?
All right, let's get it done. I'm gonna make a mistake, so you wake up. I want you, while I'm writing, to try to pick the mistakes I'm gonna be making, okay? Because I know you might be playing with your phone or maybe talking to your kids or something. All right, so I want you to wake up. I am writing. You can say to apply for the position of blah blah, but if you want to take it to the next level, if you want to use good collocations, you can say I'm writing to express my interest in the position of blah blah blah. To express your interest, a really good collocation. I'm writing to express my, you know what? Instead of saying interest, I have even a better collocation, my keen interest. Okay, I'm writing to express my keen interest in the position of. What is the position? Well, it's not written in the question, but I already told you, you should understand what the IELTS examiners are trying to tell you. They're trying to tell you that this job that you're applying for is being a tour guide, but they don't want to tell you that it's a tour guide. They want you to at least put some effort. So you can say in the position of tour guide. Let me tell you something here. When you want to write a letter applying for a job, the title of the job, you treat it as a proper noun. So you start each letter with a capital letter. I'm writing to express my keen interest in the position of, look, tour guide. You start it with a capital T and a capital G. So it stands out. Obviously, I told you before, when you are writing a formal letter, you should provide as many details as you possibly can. Okay? Do not just say this and finish the sentence. You should tell the person who's reading the letter where you found this advertisement. So we want to add a piece of information to this sentence without adding another sentence. So we're going to add a parenthetical expression. How to add a parenthetical expression? You have a comma, and then you mention that piece of information that you want to say. You can say advertised on, you can talk about a local newspaper, like you just make up a name, for example, but I'm just going to say advertised on your LinkedIn page. So you're using topic related vocabulary. But when you want to write LinkedIn, the I after the D is capital letter. This is how they write it. So write it the way it is, okay? Advertised on, you can say LinkedIn, but it's better to say on your LinkedIn page. You don't say profile, because profile is most of the time a personal profile. When it's a company, it's a page, on your LinkedIn page. You have to mention the date as well to make it very specific. Because mentioning details is technically making your letter more formal.
Yeah, you have to mention the details when you're writing a formal letter. You have to mention the date, where you found the ad, to make it more realistic. Okay? Because if you only say, I'm applying for this position, okay, maybe it's a big company. They have tens of positions. You know what I mean?
Advertised on your LinkedIn page on. Now we have to mention the date for any date, yeah? The 15th of April. You can mention the year, but I don't think it's needed because you're not going to apply for a job that was advertised 5 years ago.
Funny. Okay.
You can mention the year, but I don't think it's needed because you're not going to apply for a job that was advertised 5 years ago. You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. So you don't have to mention the year in this case. Full stop. Now let me tell you something. This is the mistake I made. I told you this is a mistake. I wanted to make a mistake just to wake you up.
Because this is for North, because she's picking on me on the chat. Yeah, I'm making mistakes to make you wake up. Everything I do is on purpose.
I wanted to make a mistake just to wake you up because I know sometimes you might, snooze in the middle of the class. So I wake you up. All right? I am.
Like an alarm, yeah? Because if you snooze, you lose.
All right? I am. No contractions when you're writing a formal letter. If you didn't pick this mistake, pause the video, unsubscribe from this course. Nah. If you didn't pick this mistake, go and watch the previous videos about avoiding contractions in formal letters, okay?
A contraction is when you make two words, one word. Like when you say doesn't instead of does not. I'm instead of I am. Want instead of will not. This is called contraction. Contraction is not formal. When you're writing an essay, when you're writing a report, when you're writing a formal letter or a semi-formal letter, do not make contractions. Do not say doesn't or don't or won't, because you won't get a good score. You like this one? And you will not get a good score. Both of them apply. Okay? So pay attention.
Now, if you didn't pick this mistake, go and watch the previous videos about avoiding contractions in formal letters, okay? All right? Keep watching, no problem. I forgive you, but focus now. I'm writing to express my keen interest in the position of tour guide advertised on your LinkedIn page on the 15th of April. Now, let me tell you something about writing dates in letters. Look here, what did I say? The, and here I said of. You can delete him and you can still get the full mark. Yeah? You can say on 15th April, but when you read it as on the 15th of April. But when you say that and of, it's more formal. Telling you this out of experience. All right, so this is how you write dates in the IELTS exam. Like a lot of students might think that the proper way of writing dates is like this. This is not formal. This is when you talk to your friend. When you want to talk formally, you write the date like this. All right?
So it looks like this video was in 2021. It's 2021, 22, 23, 24. So it looks like three and a half years ago. Okay?
When you want to talk formally, you write the date like this. All right? That's good. This is a piece of information on the fly because I care about you. So bonus. All right? Don't tell anyone about this one because probably even the IELTS examiners do not know about it. All right? All right. So this is our purpose sentence. Easy peasy, I think. No rocket science. Lovely. Lovely. Now, let's start talking about the first bullet point.
Is it clear up until now? Easy peasy, easy peasy. You can use this, by the way, in your real life. Isa, I just use ChatGPT. I don't even think about things. I will ask ChatGPT, write me a letter and make it professional. Okay, but you cannot do this in the exam. Okay? Yeah, make it more professional. Okay, make it friendly. Make it less friendly.
All right. Now, let's talk about the first bullet point. Remember, I told you before in the previous videos, each bullet point should have its own separate body paragraph. So when we're going to be talking about the first bullet point, we're going to talk about it in its own body paragraph. And I have told you before that your body paragraph should have its own clear theme. And I've told you to make it very clear to the examiner that the theme is very clear. You can do two things.
Right. To make the central topic or the central theme of the paragraph very clear, I told you two options. What are they? How to make it very clear that our paragraph is only talking about one topic. Salman. How? No one is answering. You watch me like you're watching a movie. Do you want popcorn? Nof is saying starting with a topic sentence. Good. Zahra is saying key sentence. I've never heard of this phrase, key sentence. I is saying related. Okay, I don't know what this is. Okay, all of you are going to get zeros. Pay attention. To make it very clear that your body paragraph is talking about a specific topic, you have two options. In the essays, you should mention a topic sentence. When you write a report, you mention what I call an introductory phrase, like concerning mobile phones, in terms of mobile phones, when it comes to mobile phones, as far as mobile phones are concerned. This is called an introductory phrase. But when you write letters, you can sometimes use a topic sentence similar to essays, and you can sometimes use an introductory phrase very similar to the reports. And sometimes, especially in informal letters, you cannot technically use any one of them. So when you're writing a letter, it's a little bit tricky. So pay attention, yeah? But keep these ones in your mind. A topic sentence and an introductory phrase.
To make it very clear to the examiner that the theme is very clear, you can do two things. Number one, you can start with a topic sentence. Number two, you can have what we call an introductory phrase. In this case, what are we going to be talking about? We're going to be talking about the reason why we want the job. So to make it very clear to the examiner, you can simply say, what makes me interested in this job is blah, blah, blah. So when the examiner reads the first few words, they know that you're going to be talking about what makes you interested. So let's write it. What makes me interested in applying for this job is.
So when you read this, without even having a body paragraph, you know that the remaining sentences are going to be about the reasons why you're interested in this job. So this is what I call an introductory phrase. Is it clear? These are not clear, but okay.
And then you mention the two ideas that we've discussed when we did our planning. Now let me tell you something here. When you say what makes me interested in applying for this job is, this part is what we call a noun clause. If you don't know what a noun clause is, go and watch the noun clause videos in task 2 grammar part, okay? Because when you use them, you get a higher score.
Now, do not worry about this. Yeah, it's a little bit more advanced. But a noun clause is a group of words that act as one noun. Okay? Do not worry about it. It's fine.
Okay? Because when you use them, you get a higher score. All right? So you're impressing the examiner.
Let me explain it to you because I love you. When you say, for example, my goal is to graduate from university. Here we have a noun, which is goal. My goal is to graduate from university. You can replace goal by another group of words. You can say, what makes me happy in this life is graduating from university. So you replaced one word by a group of words. That's why it's called a noun clause.
Now let me tell you something here. So we make it a little bit better. Look here. What do we have? The word job. What do we have here? The word job. What do we have here? The word position. Here, they have the word role. So you can switch between these words. All of them mean the same thing. You know what I mean? So here we can say what makes me interested in applying for this. Let me use the word role. I think it's a little bit more advanced than the word job, even though it's mentioned in the question, but it's better. We'll leave the word job till the end when we run out of things to say. And instead of saying this, we can also improve it by saying such. For example, let's read it. What makes me interested in applying for such a role, which means a role like this, such a role. It's a little bit more advanced than saying this. Okay, so I'm going to be saying such a role, which means this role. So this is also good. Why? Because when you say such a role, you're referring back to something that you mentioned earlier, which means you're using a cohesive device.
Tuqa, is it finished now? Finished? Good.
So this is also good. Why? Because when you say such a role, you're referring back to something that you mentioned earlier, which means you're using a cohesive device. You're linking it to something that you mentioned earlier. All right. We have two ideas. So we can say, what makes me interested in applying for such a role is that tourism is, all right, something came to my mind now.
See, we mentioned two reasons, like two ideas. Can you remember the ideas that I told you? Tourism is my passion, and I studied tourism at university. So now I have the ideas in my mind. What I'm doing now, I'm just trying to write them in an advanced way. But I have the ideas in my mind.
All right, something came to my mind now. Since we're going to be talking about two things, two ideas, I'm going to be using a really good grammatical structure, which is my favorite structure. Not only, but also. Oh, when the examiner is going to be reading our answer, they're going to get very impressed. Because we're starting to impress them right from the start. We're not even waiting. Right from the start. All right, let's show the examiner the hard work that we put in. So, what makes me interested in applying for such a role is that tourism is not only the major that I covered during my university days, but it is also my passion.
So every time I want to put an idea into a sentence, I always try to use the grammatical structures that I have in my mind to write these ideas. So do not just write ideas. The exam is not just about ideas. It's more about the grammatical structures. Yeah? I have a lot of grammatical structures, not only, but also the more the better. While something is happening, something else is happening. Yeah? I have a lot of complex, compound sentences in my mind. Always keep them in your mind. When you're writing, you always have to have the four marking criteria in your mind. Write using good words, lexical resource. Yeah, write with write with write with good cohesion and coherence. Link the sentences to each other. Write with good grammatical structures, and also write using topic-related vocabulary. I always have these four marking criteria in mind.
The major that I covered during my university days, but it is also my passion. Something along those lines, yeah? I think it's better to switch it around, to be honest. When you switch it around, you put more emphasis on the second part, yeah? We're lying anyway. Let's do it properly. So, what makes me interested in applying for such a role is that tourism is not only my passion, but it is also the field. I can use a really good verb when you want to talk about the field that you studied. You can say that I majored in during my university days, which means you specialized in that field. All right? We want to flex the muscles. But it is also the field that I majored in during my university days. Let's read it. what makes me interested in applying for such a role is that tourism is not only my passion since I was a child. Wow. You're lying anyway. Lie properly. Since I was not a child, a teenager. So it's a little bit more believable. Since I was a teenager. But it is also the field that I majored in during my university days. Wow. 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 W-O-W. All right? All right, we might have some mistakes here and there. We're going to fix everything when we do the proofreading. That's why it's very important to spend some time proofreading your letter. All right, so we finished the first body paragraph. Now, let's move on and talk about the second body paragraph.
See, we had two ideas. We mentioned the two ideas. But if you notice, this body paragraph is a little bit short, even though it has two ideas. So the second one, we should make it a little bit longer, or the third one, to make up for the shortage of words. Okay? But we used very advanced grammatical structures. Okay? You always have to keep the full marking criteria in mind. Salman is saying this is how to have 9 out of 10. This is 10 out of 9 because the full mark is 9. This is 10, and I will tell you now why. Okay, are you ready to move to the second bullet point? See, my younger me is funny. Okay.
The second bullet point, describe why you would be a good person for the role. I told you, because we have public speaking and communication skills, and also because we speak 10 languages. Not 10, 5. All right, so make it a little bit believable. Let's write the second body paragraph. Can we start with a topic sentence here? I think we can. You can say, there are many skills that make me a suitable candidate for such a position, full stop. First, blah, blah, blah. Second, blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah means you're talking about something, yeah? All right, let's write our topic sentence here because I think it's a good opportunity for us to have a topic sentence in this case. So we can say, I believe that the skills I have make me an excellent fit for this job. Fit is a really good word when you're talking about applying for jobs. An excellent fit. I don't want to say even a candidate because a candidate might not get the job. But when you are a good fit, you're going to get the job. And I also use the word believe, which shows the recruiters that you're confident about your skills. All right, I believe that the skills I have make me an excellent fit for this, I'm going to say job here because up until now we haven't mentioned the word job. Here we said position, here role. So now we can mention the word job. So we're showing our ability to use synonyms. Okay, let's read it. I believe that the skills I have make me an excellent fit for this job. This word is going to get you a good score. Fit. I'm using words related to the topic, words related to the tone, formal words, and words related to the purpose of the letter. Keep this in your mind. 3 things affect your choice of words. So now, I think it's a good idea to use the listing language.
Now, let me tell you something. When you read this sentence by itself, you're going to understand what the paragraph is going to be about. The skills that you have that make you an excellent fit for the job. So this is a topic sentence. Yeah. So in the first body paragraph, we did not use a topic sentence. We used an introductory phrase or an introductory clause, you can call it. Yeah. But it's not a full sentence, like part of a sentence. Now we have a full sentence that tells the examiner what the paragraph is going to be about. Okay? So now after we mentioned the topic sentence, now we have to mention the ideas. We have two ideas. I have good communication skills. Number two, I speak 5 languages. Okay? Let's see how I'm gonna write them.
So now, I think it's a good idea to use the listing language in this case. Like you can say firstly and in addition, for example. But in my personal opinion, in this case, if you use the listing language, you might sound a little bit arrogant. Like, all right, these are my skills. Number 1, number 2, number 3. Relax. So it's a little bit not the best. So I'm gonna try to avoid the use of listing language in this case, but it's always in my mind. If I have the chance to use it, I would use it. But I personally believe that I might come across as an arrogant candidate for this job. So that's why I'm not going to be using the listing language.
But you can use the listing language in the essay, for example, if you want to mention 3 ideas or 2 ideas. First, blah, blah, blah. Like you can say, watching TV has so many disadvantages. First, blah, blah, blah. And then, in addition to the first point, blah, blah, blah. This is what we call listing language. You're listing ideas in a sequence. We can also call it a sequencing language. Okay? And I explain this in detail in the course. That's why I keep using these specific terminologies. So if you're not familiar with them, do not worry.
I'm going to be using something a little bit softer. Okay? So we want to talk about our skills. The first set of skills that we have is communication and public speaking skills. And then we're going to be talking about the languages that we can speak fluently. So I can say, I have excellent, some words are repeating, but we're going to change them. I have excellent public speaking. By the way, when you say public speaking, this is a really good collocation as well. We always use these 2 words together, public speaking. And communication skills, you can use communication skills, or you can also use people skills. People skills is also a really good collocation, which means communication skills, how to deal with people. So let me just write people skills. Here, let me tell you something. We mentioned the word excellent here and the word excellent here. We mentioned have here and we mentioned have here. So we're repeating the same words. We have to change some of them. I believe that the skills I have make me an excellent fit for this job. Instead of saying have, I'm going to say possess. You possess skills. A really good collocation when you possess skills. I possess.
And this verb, when you possess something, this is a formal verb. Like there are certain verbs that sound much more formal than other neutral verbs. For example, you can buy something, which is neutral, and you can purchase something, which is more formal. You can end something, and then you can terminate something, which is formal. You can start something, this is neutral, and you can commence something, which is more formal. You can have something, which is neutral, and you can possess something. See? There's a lot of words that are used for formal writing. Yeah? So possess is one of them. Okay? Obviously, we explained this in detail because I told you writing letters, this is by itself is a full course on our website. Yeah?
All right. Excellent. It's mentioned here already. I possess. Great. Make it simple. I possess great public speaking and people skills. All right. Let's talk about the second skill that we have. So we can say, and I am able to speak 5 languages fluently. And then, because the paragraph is going to be very short, you're going to link this to the actual bullet point. So when you have public speaking skills, when you have people skills, when you can speak 5 languages fluently, how does that make you an excellent fit for this role? Well, you can say, because I have these skills, that makes me able to talk to a large group of tourists confidently and fluently. So you're relating the skills that you have to the actual job that you're applying for. You have to make a link, okay? So let's put it that way. I possess great public speaking and people skills and can speak. You want to say 10 languages? I think it's too much. 4, yeah? 4 languages fluently. I think it's believable, yeah? Now, you can have a full stop here, but we need to add an extra piece of information without adding a new sentence. So we can use a parenthetical expression. In this case, I'm going to be using a non-defining relative clause.
Now, I can end the sentence here and start a new sentence. It's fine. But the more sentences you have, the more disconnected your paragraph is going to feel. That's why I prefer not to have a lot of sentences. If I can link 2 sentences and make them one sentence, I would choose this option. Why? To make the sentences more cohesive. In other words, united. In other words, linked. In other words, connected. All of these ones are synonyms, by the way.
I'm going to be using a non-defining relative clause or a non-defining adjective clause. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch the grammar videos, okay? So we have a comma, and then you say, which makes me able to. I want to say, these skills that I have make me able to address a large group of tourists and talk to them in a confident way and tell them, here we have the pyramids of Giza, and here we have the mummies, something along those lines. All right, which makes me able to address. When you say address,
Who knows what the mummies are? Yeah, Isa, the mummies and the daddies. We know them.
when you say address, this means to talk to someone, to address someone, to talk to them, which makes me able to address large groups of, instead of saying people, I'm going to be using the word tourists. So it's topic related vocabulary, yeah? Because we're talking about welcoming visitors to your town. So it's something related to tourism. So we might as well use some words that we know that are related to the topic of tourism, yeah?
I also want to mention something here. The word address, which is a verb, it is a formal verb. So if you go and look it up in the dictionary, it's going to say formal. So when you address someone, this means you talk to someone. Okay? So that's why I chose the verb address instead of talk.
So we might as well use some words that we know that are related to the topic of tourism, yeah? Large groups of tourists. Clearly and confidently. Let's read the body paragraph. I believe the skills I have make me an excellent fit for this job. Lovely. How? I possess great public speaking and people skills and can speak 4 languages fluently, which makes me, by the way, let me tell you something. Now you might be saying, Isa, why did you use the S here? Here we have languages. It's plural. How come you're using the S? Here, when you use this non-defining relative clause, when you say which makes me, which does not refer back to languages. It refers back to the entire sentence before it. Which makes me able to address large groups of tourists clearly and confidently. Actually, I want to add something.
Did you understand why there is an S? Sometimes, yeah, but Salman didn't understand it. Salman, when you say, for example, I like to have oats for breakfast and cornflakes, for example. Yeah. So you're having oats and cornflakes, which makes me feel good about myself. When you say which makes me, which refers back not to the oats, not to the cornflakes, it refers back to the fact that you like to eat oats and cornflakes. The fact that you mentioned earlier. You know what I mean? That's why we're adding the S. Isa, what is oats? I know cornflakes, but what is oats? Google it.
Which makes me able to address large groups of tourists clearly and confidently. Actually, I want to add something because I feel like the body paragraph is a little bit short. Since we're talking about languages here, let me add an extra phrase which is going to give me a good score. Here, you can say, which makes me able to address large groups of tourists from different cultural backgrounds. So different cultural backgrounds, a really good collocation, plus it is related to speaking so many languages. So when you have many languages that you can speak, you can talk and communicate with people from different cultural backgrounds. So we're killing 4 birds with 1 stone. All right? You might be wondering now, so which bird you talking about? I don't know, but I'm saying like you're going to be doing 2 things in one hit, okay? So which makes me able to address large groups of tourists from different cultural backgrounds clearly and confidently. Lovely. So now we finished. Bullet point number 2. Lovely, lovely. Let's write the third body paragraph.
Let me add an extra piece of information here because I love you. Look here. Look at the purpose sentence. Can you see my cursor? You can see my cursor. When you say, I'm writing to express my keen interest in the position of tour guide advertised on your LinkedIn page. Instead of saying advertised, you can also say, which is advertised. Which is advertised. Yeah, it's correct. This is the short version of which is advertised. Just letting you know. And here, when you say, and can speak 4 languages fluently, which makes me able. You can also say, making me able. This is also the short version of which makes me able. Yeah. So you can say, I possess great public speaking and people skills and can speak 4 languages fluently, making me able to address large groups of people. So this is what we call the shortened adjective clause or the shortened relative clause. Okay? So extra. Do not worry if you did not understand. Minna, can we take a break for 2 minutes? No, you cannot.
The third body paragraph, describe any relevant experience you may have. All right. To make it very clear to the examiner that this body paragraph has its own clear theme, we can have a topic sentence or an introductory phrase. I told you before, by the way, that sometimes you can't have a topic sentence or an introductory phrase. But if you have the opportunity to include one of these 2 options, please include it. So in this case, we're going to be talking about experience. I think we can use a very easy introductory phrase.
Can you suggest an introductory phrase that we can use to start body paragraph number 3? Type in the comments because Minna wants a break. So let's not give her a break because she's very lazy. We need a break from you, Minna. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Relax. Lisa, I will cry now. Don't cry. Yeah, I'm waiting for your comments. Remember the academic task 1 report that we wrote. It's going to be very similar to the introductory phrases we used over there. No one is typing, by the way. You're typing? I cannot see any answers. He said, we're still typing. Who do you think we are? We're not magicians. Men are saying, regarding my last experience, blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. Yalla, no, if everyone is waiting for you. Yeah? You're raising the bar for the competition. Everyone is waiting for Nof. Everyone is lazy. They're pretending that they're writing something. But some people don't even care. They're not even pretending. Like Asma. So relax. I just want to have my tea with milk. Yeah, no one is typing. Good. Yeah, you're encouraging me. This is you encouraging me, not writing anything. I feel encouraged. Yeah? Okay. No one is interacting. Okay, no. Good. Remember this. When you get a 0 in your IELTS exam, remember me talking to you and begging you to mention something. Okay, no problem. I'm not going to talk to you anymore. I'm going to talk to my younger self.
So in this case, we're going to be talking about experience. I think we can use a very easy introductory phrase, and it's going to sound very natural. You can say, regarding my experience, comma, and then you can talk about your experience. Easy peasy.
Easy peasy. Regarding my experience, blah, blah, blah. Concerning my experience, blah, blah, blah. In terms of experience I have, blah, blah, blue. Yeah? As far as experience is concerned, blah, blah, blah.
Lemon squeezy. Yeah? All right. Regarding, and by the way, when you use the word regarding, this is very formal, or even the word concerning, very formal. If you go and look it up in the dictionary, it's going to tell you it's formal. So here we're killing so many different birds with one stone. All right? Every word that we're writing is killing birds. So at the end, we're going to be counting the birds and see what meal we're going to be cooking. All right? Regarding my experience, I want to say that we have around 2 years of experience because we worked during university days welcoming international students to our university, yeah, or to the campus of our university. But honestly, I think it's going to be very short. You know what I mean? So we have to add extra spices. And I also think we can include the complex sentence here in a really good way. Instead of saying, regarding my experience, I have 2 years of experience because I did blah, 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 you can say, listen to this one, it's really helpful. I like to use although, whereas, and while when I construct my complex sentences.
See, every time I write something, I have the grammar in mind, collocations in mind, yeah, topic related words in mind. Every time I write a single sentence, I have the 4 marking criteria in mind. Okay? Men, are you having brownie today? You always have sweets. Yeah? Looks like you're on a healthy diet. Okay.
I like to use although, whereas, and while when I construct my complex sentences. You can say, although I have just graduated from university, I already have around 2 years of experience. How? Because I used to work during my university days welcoming international students to our campus.
So I had this idea, which is having years of experience, but thinking a little bit outside the box, I added another idea, like a sub idea, if you want to call it, or a complementary idea to make it a little bit more fluffy. You have 2 years of experience? Okay. Although I've just graduated from university, I have 2 years of experience already. See? I made it a little bit fluffier. And it's a complex sentence. So higher score in grammar.
How? Because I used to work during my university days welcoming international students to our campus. Wow. Wow. Listen to this one. Although I have just graduated from university, comma. Why do we have a comma here? Because we're starting our complex sentence with the dependent clause. So we're telling the examiner that we know what we're doing regarding punctuation, yeah? Although I have just graduated from university, I already have around 2 years of experience. Right click, experience. You're not going to be doing this in the exam. I'm just teasing you, all right? So you feel bad. I already have around 2 years of experience in the field of tourism. Yeah, you have to mention what sort of experience you have. You can say in tourism, but when you say in the field of tourism, it's a good collocation as well. The field of engineering, the field of nursing, anything. Yeah, in the field of tourism. You can have a full stop here, and then you say, I used to work as an event organizer during my university days, talking to international students from different cultural backgrounds. But I'm going to link it to this sentence because I think it's more natural to link it.
As I told you, the fewer sentences, the more connected your sentence is going to be. Okay? You can finish the sentence here, but if you continue the same sentence, it's going to be better. In terms of cohesion and coherence, because you're linking two ideas together, and in terms of grammar, because you're making your sentence more complex.
You can say, because I worked as an event organizer during my university days. Or instead of saying because, you can say as, which means because. Yeah? As I used to work as an, and this is actually coming from my personal experience. Like now I'm being serious, yeah? I did work as an event organizer during my university days, and I did this job. So when you want to write your letter, try to rely on your life experience. If there's something that happened to you, trust me, it's going to make you write about it easier. Okay, so try to think of a past experience that reminds you of this question so you can talk about it properly because it's something that happened to you. Otherwise, you have to completely lie, which is also another option, but it's better to remember something that happened to you for real. Okay, so you don't lie. I already have around 2 years of experience in the field of tourism as I used to work as an event organizer. Now you might be telling me, Isa, you told us before, when you mention the job title, you have to start it with a capital letter. I told you this when you want to apply for this job to make it stand out. So it's the main focus. But here, it's not the main focus. So you talk about it normally. It's not the job that you're applying for. As I used to work as an event organizer.
Is it clear why it's not capitalized? Yeah, because it's not the job that we're applying for.
It's not the main focus. So you talk about it normally. It's not the job that you're applying for. As I used to work as an event organizer during, I think we mentioned during my university days here. So I'm not going to say during my university days. I'm going to say while I was a student, maybe. Or while I was a university student. A better one, while I was an undergraduate student. Good collocation. While, not while, I think when is better. When I was an undergraduate student. I used this word for a reason. I want to show off in front of the examiner. I could have just said a university student, but I want to tell him, relax. You're going to give me the 9 because I deserve the 9, not because you're doing me a favor. So it's like you're threatening the examiner. All right? But with that being very clear about it. So you get what you deserve. Okay? Let's read it.
You're sending hidden messages to the examiner. Give me a 9. Give me a 9. Give me a 9. You're adding a punctuation mark here. You're adding a proper comma, a complex sentence, a good collocation. So it's like an indirect language. You're talking to the examiner, you're asking him for a line, but an indirect way. Yeah? You have to ask. If you don't ask, you're not gonna get. Yeah?
Okay, let's read it. I already have around 2 years of experience in the field of tourism, as I used to work as an event organizer when I was an undergraduate student. Wow. Wow. Full stop. Well, you can finish it here, but I don't think it's the best way to finish it, because you want to link the experience you have to the role that you're applying for. So you can say, this job prepared me to talk to different people from different countries and made me experience. Let me tell you something. Something came to my mind now. This job that you held when you were a student did two things to you. Number one, made you more confident when you talk to people from different cultural backgrounds. Number two, because you were working as an event organizer, this job entailed taking these international students to the tourist attractions in your town. So now you know where the tourist attractions are. So when you apply for this job, you're going to be able to welcome visitors to your town and to show them where these tourist attractions are. Wow. All right. Honestly, I'm thinking about using not only but also again.
See, when we did when we did the planning, we came up with two ideas for the first bullet point, two ideas for the second bullet point, but we only came up with one idea for the third bullet point, which is working as an event organizer during my university days. So if it's only one idea and the letter looks a little bit short, you need to fluff it up to make it a little bit more wordy. You want to add more words. Yeah. So that's why I'm mentioning the reasons. Yeah. If the idea or the two ideas that you mentioned made the body paragraph long enough, there's no need to mention the reasons. But if it's not really enough, make it a little bit fluffier. Okay. That's why I'm mentioning the reasons. While I'm thinking about the reasons, I'm also thinking about the 4 marking criteria, obviously. Yeah. So I'm going to be using a good grammatical structure.
Honestly, I'm thinking about using not only but also again. I don't think it's a bad idea, because let's see. I like not only but also. You should know me by now. This is one of my favorite weapons that I like to use. Listen to this one. Not only, but let me tell you something. I'm using not only but also here for the second time, but I'm using it differently. How? If you've watched the grammar videos, you'd understand. But let me explain it to you a little bit quicker. When you use not only but also, at the start of the sentence, you use what we call inversion. This is when you start with the verb before the subject. But here, we use not only but also in the middle of the sentence. So we're not really using the inversion. All right? So
if you didn't get it, listen to this example. I ate not only bananas, but also apples. I didn't start the sentence with not only. Yeah. I ate, you have the subject and then the verb. I ate not only bananas, but also apples. So I'm using not only, but also, not at the start of the sentence. But when you use it at the start of the sentence, you have to do inversion. Inversion means when you do something in an inverse way, like opposite way. Instead of starting with the subject first and then the verb, you start with the verb first and then the subject. Very similar to asking a question. So I would say, for example, not only did I eat bananas, but I also ate apples. Yeah? Not only did I eat, like asking a question. Did I eat? Not only did I eat. Why am I doing this? I'm showing off. I have to show off. If you want to get a good score, you have to show off. You can say, I ate bananas and apples. You can say this. It's fine. But when you say, I ate not only bananas, but also apples, you're going to get a good score. But when you say, not only did I eat bananas, but I also ate apples, you're going to get a higher score. Okay? Oh, Ali, you're back. You didn't attend last lecture. He said, because I want to immigrate to Canada, I do not really care about the academic report. I only care about the general letter. Yeah? You're not interested in the academic version of the IELTS exam, apparently. You had an accident. Oh, sorry to hear this. But you're still alive. Thank God that you're still alive. We'll talk about the accident after we finish. Okay? Isa, I thought I'm important. Sorry for not being there. No problem. But at least watch the video on YouTube and like it, comment, and share. Okay? Double work for you.
We use not only but also in the middle of the sentence. So we're not really using the inversion. All right? So we're not really using the exact same structure. Okay? So let's show the examiner that we should get the 10, not even the 9. Look at the inversion I'm going to be using. Yeah? Focus. Not only. I want to say this job helped me in knowing the tourist attractions in the area. In other words, it exposed me to the tourist attractions in the area. A really good verb. It exposed me. But when you want to use not only, we're not going to say it exposed me. We're going to say not only did this job expose me. This is the inversion. Look, did expose. It's very similar to asking a question. Okay? So this is what we're doing. Not only did this job expose me to the tourist attractions, a really, really, really good collocation. Okay? Which means the touristic places in your area. Yeah? So not only did this job expose me to the tourist attractions in our town, because up until now we haven't really mentioned the word town. Yeah, I told you, you have to address all the key words. Okay, so let's talk about the town. Expose me to the tourist attractions in our town, but it also made me more confident, you can say, in dealing with, I don't want to say, again, large groups, because we mentioned it here. You can say in dealing with international visitors. I don't think we've mentioned the word visitors up until now. So let's use it here. In dealing with visitors from, I want to say different cultural backgrounds, but we mentioned it here, to be honest. I want to use something that means the same, but is also different. So I can say different parts of the world. Lovely. Let's read this body paragraph. Regarding my experience, although I have just graduated from university, I already have around 2 years of experience in the field of tourism, as I used to work as an event organizer when I was an undergraduate student. Not only did this job expose me to the tourist attractions in our town, but it also made me more confident in dealing with visitors from different parts of the world. I think it's lovely. So we finished the third bullet point.
Clear? Let me ask you a question. Look here. When you say here, look at the cursor. I already have around 2 years of experience. Already is an adverb. Yeah? When you have an adverb, you should know where to place it in the sentence. Like why, for example, didn't we say, I have already around 2 years of experience? I already have 2 years of experience. Or I have already 2 years of experience. Let me tell you why the second option is wrong. Because when you have a subject, this is the subject. And when you have a verb, the main verb, you place the adverb between the subject and the main verb. I, the subject, the verb, the main verb. So you place it in between. And the same thing applies to also, for example. You can say, I also have, because also is an adverb. Already is an adverb. Yeah? Just is an adverb. I just have around 2 years of experience. So you have to be careful. This is when you have only one verb, which is the main verb. But sometimes you might have two verbs, a main verb and a helping verb. Like, for example, when you say, I ate apples. I is the subject, ate is the verb, which is the main verb. If you want to use already, you can say, I already ate apples. Yeah? But what if you have another sentence that looks like this? I have eaten apples. We have two verbs, have eaten. Where do you place the adverb? Between the helping verb and the main verb. So you say, I have already eaten. Okay? So I want you to be careful. When you have one verb, which is the main verb, and when you have two verbs. In other words, having a helping verb and a main verb. If you're confused, do not worry. But if you're interested in these things, it's going to make you wake up. Is it clear? Sleeping? Okay, no problem. Wake up. Sleeping. He said, don't teach us grammar. Please, just give us the templates and tell us what to write. Can you please carry on, Isa? Yeah, giving you extra information. Because I care about you. No one cares about you the way I do.
We shouldn't be finishing the letter. We should include our ending sentence, the sentence that you forgot about. I know that you forgot about it. That's why I'm going to be reminding you. So you remind yourself in the exam. Here, we are writing a job application letter. When you want to apply for a job, there's a really good phrase that you can use. And this phrase is not only going to make you get a good score, but it is also going to impress the examiner. I taught you this one when we covered the task response marking criterion when we spoke about the tone, okay, and having appropriate and consistent tone.
I'm referring back here to the previous videos in the course. So the course on the website. So do not get confused, okay?
Listen to this one. Should you need any further information, please do not hesitate to contact me by email. I'm not going to tell you how many birds we're killing with this one. Okay, you count the birds and let me type the sentence while you counting the birds. So we can say, should you need any further, this is further, not further, okay? Should you need any further information, comma, please do not don't, do not hesitate to contact me. Full stop.
Can you replace the word should by another word? Please type in the comment. Type, guess, try to guess. No, don't guess. Ali is saying if. Aya, Tuqa, Afran, Dalal, Mena. Listen, you can replace this by the word if and read it. If you need any further information, please do not hesitate to contact me. But instead of saying if, you say should. You're upgrading your score. You know when you fly economy? Yeah, you said this is the only thing that I fly on. Yeah, we're all the same. But imagine when they upgrade you to business. If is economy class. Should first class, not even business. Okay? So more marks. You can say if, but they're going to give you a 7. If you need a 9, should. And I teach this in the grammar course, how to upgrade to first class and business class from economy.
This one, if you don't know, it's very similar to having if. Read it with the conjunction if. If you need any further information, please do not hesitate to contact me. But if you want to use if, you're only going to be killing 2 birds. This one is around 13 or 14 birds. This one is going to make you get a good score. Now we finished the ending sentence. Lovely, lovely. Have we finished the letter? No. We have to sign off the letter. How to sign off the letter? Remember, what sort of letter are you writing?
How to sign off? Nof is saying you're faithfully. Wrong. Please type in the comments. Just write your name. Write anything. Just make me feel like I'm talking to you. Yeah? Sarah saying name. Sincerely yours. 0, 0. Best regards. 0. Name. 0. By name. Yeah, what do you write before the name? Yours faithfully. 0. I'm looking to 000. Because this is the ending statement which we just finished. Yeah, all of you are going to get zeros. Okay, wake up.
How to sign off the letter? Remember, what sort of letter are you writing? Formal. How are you going to finish it? Faithfully. Don't do this in the exam. Okay? Because of the coronavirus, it's getting contagious. So you have to be wearing the mask if you want to do it. All right? So yours faithfully starts with a small f. Faithfully. Remember, how many L's do we have for faithfully? 2 L's. How did I know? Look at the F. How many dashes does it have? We can't really see, but 1 here and 1 here, so 2.
A lot of students would make this mistake. Yours, they would write yo instead of yours. So this is first mistake. Faithfully, they would start with a capital letter. Second mistake. The third mistake, they would write 1 L. So because it's a formal letter, you write faithfully. This is number 1. If it's a semi-formal letter, sincerely. Semi-formal, sincerely. Formal, faithfully. Faithfully, because you know when you write letter F, you write 1 line and another line. This means you have 2 lines. This means 2 L's. Sincerely, you write 1 S. Only 1 line. So it's 1 L. And both of them start with a small letter. This is how I remember them. Is it clear? I like it.
Sincerely has 1 L because it's sincerely, single L. And then when you want to sign off with your name, when it's a formal letter, you write your full name. What's my name? Nathan Smith. Yeah, this is my Australian name. Okay? You don't really have to write your actual name in the exam, by the way. You can just make up any name. By this, we finished this letter, but we haven't done our proofreading part yet, which is a very important part that I want you to get used to, even when you're practicing.
I also want you to pay attention to the way you write the name. When it's a formal letter, you write your full name. When it's an informal letter, you write your first name. Okay? And when it's a semi-formal letter, you also write your full name. Okay, clear?
Let's proofread our letter. Dear Sir or Madam, I'm writing to express my keen interest in the position of tour guide, advertised on your LinkedIn page on the 15th of April. All right. There's something that I didn't mention here, which might affect our mark. I did not really speak about the job being part-time. So I'm not really addressing all the keywords. We might as well just say part-time. See, proofreading is very important. Very important. Okay, you can do quick fixes here and there. In the part-time position of tour guide. Okay, so advertisement, this keyword was mentioned here. Part-time, mentioned here. Job, mentioned here. Welcoming visitors, tour guide. Yeah, town was mentioned here. Okay, you're writing to the recruiters. Well, it's common sense that we're writing to the recruiters. Yeah, because you're not going to be writing a cover letter to someone who's not recruiting. So you don't really have to mention the word recruiters in your letter. And obviously, all of the bullet points, we've covered them in our body paragraphs. Okay, so we addressed all the keywords. Let's keep reading. What makes me interested in applying for such a role is that tourism is not only my passion since I was a teenager, but it is also the field that I majored in during my university days. I think it's better to delete this part because when you say is, you want to make it related to the present. Otherwise, you might be grammatically incorrect. So it's better to delete it just to be in the safe side. Okay, let's read it after the omission of that phrase. What makes me interested in applying for such a role is that tourism is not only my passion, but is also the field that I majored in during my university days. It's better.
Let me tell you why I deleted it so you understand. When you say is is it's present, yeah? So when you want to talk about something, it has to be related to the present. But when you say since I was a teenager, this means it is something that started in the past and it's still affecting the future. So if you want to say since I was a teenager, instead of using present simple, it is better to use present perfect. Like I can say, for example, what makes me interested in applying for such role is that tourism has not only been my passion since I was a teenager. You know what I mean? I'm using present perfect because I'm talking about something that happened in the past. Being a teenager is in the past and it's still affecting my present. That's why I'm using the present perfect. But because I deleted since I was a teenager, it's is. So if you want to keep that phrase, you should change is to has been. English teachers would like this. Yeah, yes, I know. Present perfect and the past affecting present.
So here, I just want to teach you something. When you're not confident about a certain grammatical structure, or when you are skeptical about it, do not use it, just to be in the safe side. Let's keep reading. I believe that the skills I have make me an excellent fit for this job. Okay.
One second. Tuqa is saying add a comma before but. Yeah, after passion, correct? You mean? Comma before but. Which but? Tuqa, I'm talking to you. You commented on something. After passion, yeah. You're correct. We can add a comma, but let me tell you something. Commas in the English language, like there's a lot of grammar books. You know what I mean? Some people might say add a comma at a certain place. Some people would say do not add a comma. You know what I mean? So if you added a comma, 100% correct. That's correct. You know what I mean? When I would normally add a comma, if I want to separate these two clauses from each other, so it's not confusing. You know what I mean? If you added a comma, it's honestly probably if I wrote it again, I would probably add a comma. Maybe I just missed it. But if it's not there, it's not a big deal. You're not even gonna lose marks, yeah? Adding commas to separate clauses, it's not black and white, by the way. There's a lot of grammar books. Some people fight with each other. Some people say add a comma. Some people would say, do not add a comma. Yeah? It's like adding a comma before the last item of a list. Some people would tell you add a comma before the last item of a list. Others would say do not add a comma before the last item of a list. But good observation too.
Let's keep reading. I believe that the skills I have make me an excellent fit for this job. Okay, look here. I felt that the
Please pay attention here. It's very important. Look here what's gonna happen. Our score is gonna increase probably by half a band here. Focus. A very small fix.
Okay, look here. I felt that the transition between this body paragraph and this body paragraph is a little bit not very smooth. I'm gonna add one word that is going to make the difference. Look, also. I also believe, see, it's more natural now. I also believe that the skills I have make me an excellent fit for this role or for this job.
Can you see the difference? Can you see how more natural it became? And I want you to ask yourself, why did we add also between I and believe? Because I is the subject and believe is the only verb, so we added in between because it's an adverb. But let's say, for example, the words are I am believing. We have am, which is a helping verb, believing, which is the main verb. You will say, I am also believing. So you add the adverb between the helping verb and the main verb. Is it clear? Yeah. We added it. The main reason we added it is to connect this paragraph to the previous one in a more natural transition.
See, it's more natural now. I also believe that the skills I have make me an excellent fit for this role or for this job. I possess great public speaking and people skills and can speak 4 languages fluently, which makes me able to address large groups of tourists from different cultural backgrounds clearly and confidently.
Let me just comment on something here. Even though I wrote this letter, I think the connection between the second sentence here and the first one is not the best. But I think I'm not going to fix it. I missed it. The connection here, I possess, it's all right, but I think it could be better. You know what I mean?
All right. The third body paragraph, regarding my experience. Although I have just graduated from university, I already have around 2 years of experience in the field of tourism, as I used to work as an event organizer when I was an undergraduate student. Not only did this job expose me to the tourist attractions in our town, but it also made me more confident in dealing with visitors from different parts of the world. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong here, but something came to my mind. It is a phrase that when I use is going to show the examiner that I know what I'm talking about. I want to use this phrase, hands-on experience, which means practical experience. All right? So this is a really good collocation, hands-on experience. So let's write it this way. Not only did this hands-on, you write it this way, experience exposed me to the tourist attractions in our town, but it also made me more confident in dealing with visitors from different parts of the world. Should you need any further information, please do not hesitate to contact me. Yours faithfully, Nathan Smith. I think the transition from the third body paragraph to the ending sentence is a little bit abrupt. It's sudden. It's not smooth. You can say, a copy of my resume is attached to this letter. Should you need any further information, please do not hesitate to contact me. Like, if you need more information than the information provided in my resume, then you can contact me. I think it's more natural. Because when you apply for a job, you want to mention something about your resume. By the way, the word resume means CV. A copy of my resume is attached to this. You can say email, or you just can say letter. So you don't really have to have this one on its own. You can have it with this sentence. They are related to each other. Let's read it. A copy of my resume is attached to this letter. Should you need any further information, please do not hesitate to contact me. Yours faithfully, Nathan Smith. Lovely. Lovely. I'm very happy with the quality of this letter, to be honest. Okay? If I was the recruiter, I would give me the job. Because you have to love yourself. I love me. All right. Now that we finished the proofreading, let's jump and talk about the evaluation part.
Honestly, if I were to write this letter again, in the ending statement, I would write it in another way. I would say, for example, I would also like to inform you that a copy of my resume is attached. I think it would make the connection better. I would also like to inform you that. When you say also, you're connecting it to the previous paragraph. But this is all right. You know what I mean? Not the best. Good. We're almost done. Isa, we are sick of this course.
Let's evaluate the letter. And we're going to start with task response. Number one, did we hit the minimum word count, which is 150 words? Let's have a look. We wrote 196 words, which is perfect. So it's more than 150, but it's not more than 200. If you exceed 200, it's getting long. Okay? Do not exceed 200. You don't have time to write more than this.
This one is a little bit long. Should be 170 roughly. 180. This is a little bit long, but it's okay as long as it's below 200.
Okay? Do not exceed 200. You don't have time to write more than this. Okay? This is number one. Number two, did we have consistent and appropriate tone?
By the way, now we're looking at the table. You remember the table that you took the screenshot of in the previous session? We're going through the table now. You have to have this table in your mind when you're writing all the time.
This is number one. Number two, did we have consistent and appropriate tone? First of all, it's very clear that we're talking with a formal tone because dear sir, madam, I am writing to express my keen interest. We have no contractions. Obviously, I am, no contraction. It is, instead of saying it's. Do not instead of don't. So we're not using any contractions. The choice of words, we used very formal words. Let me give you some examples. When you say you want to express your keen interest, very formal style. You know what I mean? When you say you possess, not you have, you possess, formal. Address large groups of people, not talk to, address. The word regarding is very formal. Should you need any further information, very formal style. Yours faithfully. We're using a formal way of ending the letter and of signing off the letter. So the style that we used is very clear that it is formal. So it's consistent throughout. We also here mentioned the details of the advertisement. So when you mention details, this makes the style more formal.
We are still under task achievement. I'm talking about the formal and informal style because under task achievement, there is something that's called avoid inappropriacy. This means do not write using informal style when you should be using formal style. Yeah. And the style should be consistent throughout. This means do not use formal style for some words and then informal style for the rest of the words. So your style has to be consistent and it has to be appropriate. So we are still under task achievement.
Did we present a very clear purpose? Yes, we did. It's very clear that we are applying for this position. And then here, we used an ending sentence. So we're reminding the reader that we are applying for a job.
Why am I talking about the purpose and how clear the purpose is? Because one of the bullet points in the table I told you to take a screenshot of is to answer the question. Answering the question means having a clear purpose of the letter. Okay? And obviously addressing the bullet points. That's why I'm talking about the purpose of the letter here.
Did we address all the keywords mentioned in the task? Yes, we did. I told you. Advertisement, we mentioned it here. Part-time, we mentioned it here. The job, we mentioned it here. Visitors, like when you're welcoming visitors, this means you're a tour guide. Town, we mentioned it here, yeah? Recruiters, we obviously talking to the recruiters. So we addressed all the key points in the question. Did we present and support the bullet points? Yes, we did. We allocated one entire paragraph for each one of the bullet points. This one has this body paragraph. The second one has this body paragraph. The third one has this body paragraph.
So the table that you took the screenshot of, it says having developed ideas. Developed ideas means mentioning reasons for each bullet point, like presenting the idea and developing it.
This one has this body paragraph. The second one has this body paragraph. The third one has this body paragraph. And we've also supported the bullet points, yeah, by giving extra details. You remember the spices that you've got to add? So here we added 2 ideas. Here we have 2 ideas. Here we have 1 idea, but we added extra detail to this idea. We said that this job gave us the experience and made us more confident. So we added the details. We supported the bullet points. Okay. So regarding task response, 10 out of 9. Let's move and talk about the coherence and cohesion. You have to be confident. Don't look at me like this. I know you can't see me, but you have to be confident. So the examiner gives you the score that you deserve. Yeah, and by the way, regarding task response and regarding the appropriate tone, we did not shorten any words. We did not omit any parts of any sentence. We did not show any sort of emotions.
If you didn't get this point, when you write an informal letter, one of the ways to make your letter informal is by making some words short. For example, instead of saying university, you can say uni. Instead of saying breakfast, this is Australian, but you can understand it. People can say brekkie. Instead of saying sunglasses, you can say sunnies. Yeah? This is when you shorten certain words. So when you use this style, this means it's very clear, it's informal. When I say omitting, this means deleting. When you're writing with an informal style, sometimes you should delete the subject. For example, when you're saying, I just want to let you know that, blah, blah, blah. We have the subject, which is I. But when you are writing in an informal style, you can say, just want to let you know. Not, I just want to let you know. You're deleting the subject. And this is what we call omission. This is when you omit the subject. Like when you say, see you soon. Where's the subject here? See you soon. It's technically, I will see you soon. But when you say, see you soon, you got it? I hope you're doing great. you can say, hope you're doing great. Yeah, but we're not deleting any subjects here to tell the examiner that we are writing using a formal style. Is it clear? It's not clear, but we want to go to bed.
Now let's move and speak about the second marking criterion, which is coherence and cohesion. Number one, did we use paragraphing appropriately? It's very clear that we have separate paragraphs. The purpose sentence, body paragraph number one, body paragraph number two, body paragraph number three, the ending sentence or the ending statement. Did we present a clear theme within each paragraph? Yes. Number one, each bullet point has its own body paragraph, plus we tried to make it very clear by having something that tells the examiner what the body paragraph is about. What makes me interested in applying for such a role? It's very clear what we're going to be talking about. I believe that the skills I have make me an excellent fit for this job. It's very clear that we're going to be talking about the skills. Regarding my experience, it's very clear they're going to be talking about your experience. So we have clear themes for the paragraphs. Do we have clear overall progression? Yes, because we spoke about the bullet points in the same order they gave us. Okay, sometimes I told you, you might have to change the order, but it does not happen very often. But in this case, the order is logical, makes sense. So we have a clear overall progression.
This means write the first body paragraph regarding the first bullet point. Second one for the second bullet point. The third one for the third bullet point. 99% of the times, the order or the sequence of the bullet points makes sense. This means you should follow it. Follow the sequence when you write your body paragraphs to make your overall progression very natural, very smooth.
Did we use a range of cohesive devices? Well, let's have a look. A lot of students think that the cohesive devices are in addition, furthermore. However, they think these are the only ones that are considered cohesive devices. These are not all the cohesive devices. Let me show you the cohesive devices that we used here. We used them naturally. This might be one of the reasons why you didn't even notice them, because we used them naturally. Such a role. What do you mean by such a role? The role that you mentioned earlier. So this is a cohesive device. When you say not only, this means there's something else coming. So you're linking the first thing, which is your passion, to the second thing, which is the field that you majored in. So not only, but also is a cohesive device.
So any conjunction that links two ideas together is technically a cohesive device, because a conjunction means it's a junction. It's linking two things together. So it's a cohesive device. So although it's a cohesive device, while it's a cohesive device, not only but also is a cohesive device, and is a cohesive device, if is a cohesive device, you got it?
So here, such a role is a cohesive device. Not only, but also is a cohesive device. I also believe also is a cohesive device, because this means you mentioned something earlier. Now you're saying also. So you're moving to another point. So this is a cohesive device. This job referencing, you're referring back to something that you mentioned earlier, cohesive device. Which makes me, which, what do you mean by which? The thing that we mentioned earlier, a cohesive device. Regarding my experience, it's an introductory phrase. It's also a cohesive device. Although is a cohesive device, because you're linking two clauses together. Although I did something, something else is done. Again, not only, but also a cohesive device, yeah? This letter, you're referring to the letter. Even here, should, which means if you need any further information. This means you're linking this clause to the following clause, a cohesive device. So we're using a lot of cohesive devices, but we're using them naturally. That's why we didn't even notice them. You don't have to use in addition, furthermore. You can, but you don't have to use them, okay? So coherence and cohesion, 10 out of 9. Let's talk about lexical resource. Did we use related vocabulary? Yes. Tone related vocabulary? Topic related vocabulary? Purpose related vocabulary. We spoke about the tone. I already showed you the formal words that we chose.
Tone means the formality of the letter. Yeah, formal or informal.
Regarding the topic, which is work and being a tour guide, this is something related to the topic. The word position was not even mentioned here. We mentioned it. LinkedIn is a good word. The word tourism was not even mentioned here, but we mentioned it. The field I majored in, an excellent fit for this job, yeah? Which is also a good collocation. The word skills is not even mentioned in the question. We mentioned it, so it's related to the topic. Languages, different cultural backgrounds, yeah? I'm not going to go through all of them, but you've got the point, yeah? So we're using words related to the topic, words related to the tone, words related to the purpose. When you say, express my keen interest, this is related to the purpose. When you say, a copy of my resume, related to the purpose. When you say, should you need any further information, related to the purpose, okay? And we've also avoided repeating the same words again and again and again, if you noticed. I told you while I was typing, all right, I used this phrase here, let's change it. I used this here, let's change it. Collocations, a lot of good collocations. When you express your interest, a good collocation. Part-time position, a good collocation. Tour guide, a good collocation. Apply for a job or apply for a role, good collocation. You major in a field, a good collocation. You possess skills, good collocation. Skills here. Different cultural backgrounds, good collocations. A lot of good collocations we're using.
How to check the collocations? You go to Longman Dictionary, type in the word that you need to find collocations for, scroll down, there is a box that says collocations. These are the words that collocate well with this word. When you use them, you get a good score because they sound natural.
Different cultural backgrounds, good collocations. A lot of good collocations we're using. And we did not make any spelling mistakes because we have Microsoft Word. You're not going to have it in the IELTS exam. And we did not make any word formation mistakes. So lexical resource, 10 out of 9. Let's check grammatical range and accuracy. And I'm telling you from now, 11. Because I told you the two sentences, remember? Let me show you. Not only, but also, I like this one. I like this one as well. And I like this one. These three alone would guarantee you a good score, alone. But we also used a lot of other things as well. This one, although, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, although, complex sentence. See, here we used a non-defining relative clause. Here we used a parenthetical expression. Here we used a noun clause. A variety of complex structures. Punctuation was spot on. We used the comma here. We used the comma here. We use the comma here because we're starting with the dependent clause. We use the comma here because we're starting with the dependent clause. We use the comma here after this introductory phrase. We use the comma here before the non-defining relative clause. The use of commas was spot on.
Spot on means excellent. Yeah? When I say it was spot on, this means it was excellent.
The use of commas was spot on. So grammatical range and accuracy, this is going to be the highest score because I think was really spot on. Okay? So this is how you write a formal letter. I know it's not that easy. It takes time, obviously, to practice. But writing a formal letter is very similar to writing essays in terms of the choice of words and punctuation and these kind of things. Yeah? So it's not rocket science. All you have to do is to practice, practice, practice. Because practice makes perfect. Lovely, lovely.
A lot of you, I think, do not know the meaning of this phrase, a dependent clause. Let me just explain it very fast. When you say, I am teaching you while you are having a cup of coffee, for example. I am teaching you while you're having a cup of coffee. Now, we are starting the sentence with what we call an independent clause. I am teaching you. When you say I'm teaching you, you can finish the sentence he. It does make sense. I'm teaching you. That's why it's called independent. It's independent. It does not depend on another clause. But when you say while you're having a cup of coffee alone, what does it mean? The idea is not complete. That's why it's called a dependent clause. It depends on another clause to make it make sense. Yeah? While you're having a cup of coffee. Okay. What happened? So we have a dependent clause, which is while you're having a cup of coffee, and you have the independent clause, which is I am teaching you. If you want to start the sentence with the independent clause, you don't use a comma. You say, I am teaching you while you're having a cup of coffee. Fine. But if you want to switch the order, if you want to say, while you're having a cup of coffee, I am teaching you. Here, because we started with the dependent clause, you have to have a comma after it. Yeah? So while you're having a cup of coffee, comma, I'm teaching you. So this is what I meant by the phrase dependent clause. That's why here, if you look at the cursor, when you say, although I have just graduated from university, I added a comma because we started with the although clause. It's like while you're having a cup of coffee. You got it? I think it's clear. Yeah. If you do not want to get a really good score, do not worry. If you want to get a 6 or something, it should be fine. But if you want to get 7 and above, these things do make a difference. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of today's class.